Is your mind clear of defilements and ready to go? By the end of this burst, you will see the connections between the Buddha's emanation body, Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of compassion, the Gelug, and the Dalai Lamas. Let's begin with some more details on the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism. The Gelug school, which means virtuous path, was founded by an individual from Amdo, modern-day Qinghai, named Tsongkhapa, who lived from 1357 to 1419. Driving Tsongkhapa's success was his insistence on reforming Tibet's monasteries, which he believed had become too lax in their discipline. Therefore, he emphasized the importance of the Vinaya, or monastic code of conduct, and imposed these reforms in the monastery he founded in Lhasa called Gendon. Although Tsongkhapa's monastic seat was in Lhasa, his reputation, and more importantly his teachings, spread across the entire Tibetan region. His birthplace in Amdo is the location of one of the largest monasteries outside of central Tibet, and is called Kumbum. Here are some images from Kumbum from a trip I took a few years ago. The structures on the left are called stupa, or jorden, and often contain the relics of important teachers. The statue on the right is Tsongkhapa. A quick bit of trivia. Indiana has a connection to Tsongkhapa. No, really. Tsongkhapa's father was named Lumbumge. Well, his emanation or reincarnations have historically held the highest seat in Kumbum Monastery, which we just saw in the previous slide. Who holds his seat today? Well, his name is Arje Rinpoche, who, after leaving China for political reasons, now lives in Bloomington, Indiana, where he is the director of the Tibetan Mongolian Buddhist Cultural Center, which is also known as Kumbum West. But back to connecting the dots. Gelug teachings were becoming more popular in Tibet, but they still competed with other schools for supremacy. Luckily for the Gelugs, they would soon find a powerful patron. Now, in the 16th century, the Mongols were but a shell of their former empire. However, they could still influence regional politics through their military might. Altan Khan, a descendant of Kubla, became interested in Buddhism and invited a monk from the Gelug school named Sonam Gyatso to offer teachings. Altan Khan was most impressed with Sonam Gyatso's knowledge and bestowed upon him the title Dalai Lama, which means Ocean of Wisdom. Of course, at this time, the title was essentially a certificate of gratitude and did not carry political power. Nevertheless, the title and lineage had started. Well, it actually kind of continued. Before his death in 1588, Sonam Gyatso vowed to be reborn. Remember, bodhisattvas can do this, in order to complete his work. His reincarnation was Yonten Gyatso, the grandson of Altan Khan. Yonten Khan became the fourth Dalai Lama. No, you didn't hear incorrectly. I said fourth. Sonam Gyatso was the third. So, let's turn back the hands of time. Alexa, play If I Could Turn Back Time.
If I Could Turn Back Time by Cher, starting now on Amazon Music.
In the previous burst, I spoke about the importance of organizational lineage, or those responsible for the institutionalization of a tradition such as a teacher or lama. Here we see how this idea is put into practice. The third and fourth Dalai Lama had to demonstrate an unbroken connection to a lineage holder, in this case, Tsongkhapa. Therefore, according to Tibetans, the first Dalai Lama, but who was never given this title when he was alive, was recognized to be one of Tsongkhapa's most trusted disciples, Gedin Drop. The second Dalai Lama, who also never enjoyed the title while he was alive, was the individual already recognized as Gendin Drom's reincarnation, Gendin Gyatso. although it's reasonable to be skeptical about the authenticity of these reincarnations. Remember, we need to think through it from a Buddhist worldview, which is not linear but cyclical. Furthermore, the practice of recognizing reincarnations of past masters in Tibet began as early as the 10th century. On this slide, we can see the current Dalai Lama sitting in front of a statue of Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of Compassion. By the time of the 5th Dalai Lama, Tibetan Buddhist scholars widely believed that the Bodhisattva of Compassion favored Tibet and had manifested itself as humans in the divine plan. You may recall that Songtsen Gampo, Tibet's first king, was recognized as an emanation of Chenrezig, or the Bodhisattva of Compassion. As the Dalai Lama's importance increased, he built the Potala Palace in Lhasa. It is no coincidence that the name of the Potala is the name of Chenrezig's home. From then on, the Dalai Lama became synonymous with the Bodhisattva of Compassion. However, before the Dalai Lama, Buddhists believed Chenrezig manifested himself dozens of times. In fact, the current Dalai Lama believes he is the 74th emanation. Okay, so let's recap. The Dalai Lamas, or the Dalai Lama, meaning the institution of the position, is believed to be the incarnation of Avalokitesvara, or Chenrezig in Tibetan, who's the Bodhisattva of Compassion. Well, technically, according to Tibetan tradition, the Dalai Lama is the rebirth of a historical figure, in other words, the previous Dalai Lama, and he's not a successive incarnation of Avalokitesvara itself. First and foremost, he's the head of the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism. Remember, the school founded by Tsongkhapa. Now, due to certain circumstances in history, the Dalai Lamas also served as the head of Tibet's government. In other words, they possess both sacred and secular authority. And this held true essentially from the beginning of the Qing dynasty in 1644, all the way through the establishment of the People's Republic of China, with the exception of 1705 and 1750, and after the Gurkha Wars of 1793. Students often ask how reincarnated lamas are identified. The process is somewhat standardized but complex. First, the previous incarnation will leave behind clues before his passing. He may drop hints about locations or natural phenomenon, etc. After the death of an important chulku, remember that means emanation body of Buddha, monastic officials will be on the lookout for miraculous signs, which can be from remarkable births, an especially gifted child, or maybe a natural wonder. Sometimes then, a lottery system is put in place. One common method is to have candidates' names, or the children who exhibit signs of being popular reincarnations, placed inside a tsampa ball. We will talk about tsampa later, but it's a staple food made from barley. And through a ritual, the candidate is chosen. Sometimes in history, a golden urn was used to pick names. This device is now at the center of much controversy, but let's not get into it now. Finally, a high lama needs to verify that all the signs have been interpreted correctly. Okay, have you figured out the connections? A mind free of defilements, in other words, a Buddha, and some highly accomplished bodhisattvas, can appear in cyclic existence as an emanation body. In other words, one that can be perceived and observed by humans. Chenrezig, or the Bodhisattva of Compassion, has emanated itself in the cyclical world at least 74 times as part of a master plan created out of compassion. By the 16th century, the Gelug school, remember this is the Buddhist school that was founded by Tsongkhapa and have the monks that wear the yellow hats. Well, They aligned with the Mongols and emerged as the most powerful and influential Buddhist school in Tibet. When the fifth Dalai Lama assumed political and spiritual power of Tibet, he built the Potala Palace in Lhasa. By no coincidence, the Potala was named after Chenrezig's mythological home, the Potalaka Mountains. Voila! There we have it. The religious and historical process is how the Dalai Lama became associated with the Bodhisattva of compassion, and how the successive emanations of this Bodhisattva existed in the cyclical world.